Page 3 now, the Sony hack attack phase 2. The show will go on Christmas Day. The movie The Interview will be screened in selected theaters, and it will be made available online and pay-per-view. Now, there's a very good chance that the hack job of Sony was an inside job. In fact, hacking is becoming more prevalent and is becoming more and more dangerous for large companies.
You have more actors coming to the scene, right? It's no longer the hackers for the fame, but it's people strictly for financial gain and for stealing corporate and state secret. So what that means is they have a lot of resource. They're going to take their time.
So, in the Sony hack attack, there is evidence that a former employee could be responsible. Now, the likelihood that North Korea did this is very low. For some reason, the FBI is not revealing that all cyber avenues that lead to North Korea are dead ends. However, it does not change the fact that the government of Kim Jong-un considers the movie tantamount to an act of war.
In a sense, it's almost more invasive than Western economic sanctions or military exercises, because they can always rally the people around, Western hostility, but Western ridicule is harder for them to rally their people around because it raises questions about the leadership.
In fact, the hack attack on Sony is an act of war against the United States. Team Obama is promising a response, but against whom? No doubt the hacking of Sony is a top political story of the year among several other stories. So what are the biggies of 2014? Joining me now, Community's digital news columnist, political commentator, and Daily Ledger contributor T.J. O'Hara. T.J., certainly Sony, it's at the end of the year, but it is no doubt $100 million worth of damage. I liken it on this program to what happened on Pearl Harbor in 1941 or what happened on 9/11. It was an attack, it's just there was no loss of life.
Well, I suppose you could look at it that way. Certainly corporate espionage goes on all the time. What was particularly concerning about this is perhaps that it was state-sponsored, and I think that takes it to another level. I think any response to North Korea has to be measured because you can't apply rational solutions to irrational people, so there's a danger in that regard. What I found to be particularly ironic about the situation is the limited exposure a fascinating story got, and that was Amy Pascal. When her emails were released, she should have gotten the Oscar for the best example of a double standard because she came out and said, I take full responsibility for my comments. And yet she wanted to argue that her private transmissions in her emails were not reflective of who she truly was. And yet her public pronouncements, which were carefully crafted damage control statements, were a reflection of who she authentically is. And I found that to be fascinating.
Amazing. It's Hollywood, though, so what do you expect? So the intelligence community, of course, is investigating the Sony hack attack. But when we talk about the government intelligence, which many people believe is an oxymoron, we need to also look at, for example, Benghazi. We still don't know exactly what the president was doing, for example, on the night of the Benghazi attack. And then we have this CIA report that was released by Dianne Feinstein, which did exactly zero good except make everybody look embarrassed.
Well, that's true. When you look at the two intelligence committees, first of all in the House, as you referenced Benghazi, they had 2 years to reflect upon the detail and to try and ferret out the facts. And what was interesting, they came back and they said 3 individuals, Chris Speranto, John Teagan, and Mark Geist, were absolute heroes. These were the people who either rushed into the annex or I should say into the mission to try and save the ambassador and others, and then returned to defend the annex while others cowered inside. And they were extolled as heroes, and yet because they said that they had been issued one specific stand-down order and they had been issued other delays, which protracted their entry into the mission for about 27, 28 minutes, they were basically ignored. And that report came back out of the House suggesting that no delays had been issued. And that challenges our intelligence. Then you look at the Senate, and they release a unilateral report from the Democratic side of the House Intelligence Committee, released for political reasons because they were going to lose the leadership of that particular committee. And they pander to the belief that we're the purveyors of torture throughout the world. And you and I have talked about ISIL before and so forth. There's real torture going on in the world.
Yep.
What they were trying to exhibit was something less than that. And the problem is there was no dissent. So hopefully rational people with real intelligence can distinguish between the two. And maybe we'll have an executive order this year that'll absolutely prevent government from using the word intelligence with regard to any of their committees.
I would agree with that. That's the one use of executive order I would agree with. Of course, the most famous one this year was an executive order that wasn't apparently an executive order. Obama comes out, makes the unilateral decision on executive amnesty, but there was no executive order, at least not to date, so it was a little bit of a rope-a-dope, but the damage is done. And what he's done essentially with executive amnesty is to tell Department of Homeland Security, his henchmen, to execute what he's going to do, and that's not enforce existing immigration law.
Well, that is troubling. The whole scenario around immigration should be easy if you think about it. You're either in this country legally or you're in it illegally. And all we need to do is clarify the parameters that surround your entrance and your expulsion. And if we did that and we made the system more effective, the problems with immigration would go away, and we wouldn't need the pontification in the form of executive orders or other exhortations that suggest that we're going to create a new form of citizenship or change the process in any way. What we've got to do is identify it, clarify it, and fix it.
That's right. Seal the border, I think. Build a moat if you have to. I know people say that facetiously. I mean it. Secure the border any way you have to. And we've got to do something. In my opinion, I think we deport illegal immigrants. They're here illegally. I'm sorry. It's that simple. But let's move on to one of probably the biggest, I think, story politically of the year. It was the 2014 midterm elections. Of course, the immigration issue drove the results of that election along with Obamacare.
Well, I think there was another thing that pushed it, because the most common platform I heard was, "I'm not President Obama." And that's only fair that the Republicans, by the way, won on that, because President Obama himself won on "I'm not George Bush" on two separate occasions. So the question becomes, what will the Republicans do with their newfound power?
Right.
Will they, in the Senate, for example, look at the nuclear option and leverage it, or will they yield it? What bills will they pass, and will the president veto them, and how will they address that issue? Are they going to begin working for the people, or are they going to continue doing the same thing Harry Reid did and working for the party?
Well, it would be nice if they keep their promises, their campaign promises, for one, but we'll see in a matter of days. TJ, thanks and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and Merry Christmas.